Ladies and gentlemen, this week on the program, we are capturing the zeitgeist. We are being very current. We are talking about NFL football and the context it provides for a discussion about preparing for and seizing opportunities. And if that's not enough, we also have some new music to talk about that further illustrates preparing for and seizing opportunities. It is just a magical episode. I'm glad you are here for it. I hope you will be inspired, and we'll get to it on the other side. Hello, you're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. There is a beautiful symmetry to this week's episode. Last week I put out a video, and it went supremely viral on your interwebs, on your social media apps. I put out this video, which was an illustration of the fact that I was having a lot of trouble coming up with anything to talk about on this week's episode. And that happens sometimes. I know I make it seem like this is a well-oiled machine, but sometimes I just struggle to come up with a really good topic, So I put out this video, and with it in the caption, I said, what do you want me to talk about? And I just left it out there because, the essence of good podcasting is to answer the questions that are uppermost in your mind, kids. And so there was a response to that caption from our old friend Carly Thomas, the great Carly Thomas, and she said, do a football episode. To which I responded, American or European football? And she said, American football. Okay. And so I started thinking about what's my history with football. I'm not a big football guy, not a big NFL guy, okay? So I started going through some memories. What do I have of American football? And it got me thinking about the one and only time that I played a Super Bowl party. That doesn't tend to be a big thing for musicians, at least in my case. I haven't been invited to play a lot of Super Bowl parties, but in fact, I did play one. And it was in 2020, and it was in Texas. And I was down there playing gigs in the Rio Grande Valley with the Sarah Smith Trio. And so we got booked to play a Super Bowl party at this RV resort. And that's mostly what we were doing down there, was touring around, playing the RV resort circuit down there, which is a thing. There are something like 200 RV parks in the Rio Grande Valley. Southernmost Texas. We were stationed 20 minutes from the Mexican border. And it is a winter haven for what they call winter Texans. And that's your people from the northern states. There's a lot of people from Missouri, Illinois, etc., and a whole lot of Canadians, my friends. Snowbirds. If you live on the western side of the continent, your snowbirds go to Texas. Your eastern side people tend to go to Florida, okay? And so the Rio Grande Valley in Texas is just loaded with RV parks. And we were down there playing the circuit because it's a great way to spend a month or 2 months getting out of the Canadian winter and going down there and playing these resorts. And they're a lot of fun, okay? And I've talked about that before, and I don't need to talk about it again. So we got booked to play in 2020 a Super Bowl party at one of these resorts, okay? And that is really poignant to me, and that's where the symmetry comes in, because that was 2020, the final Super Bowl BC. BC meaning before COVID. That was the final Super Bowl. And where the symmetry part is that game featured the Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers. And what do we have, kids? 4 years later, what do we have on deck? but a Super Bowl featuring the Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers. And that is the beautiful symmetry, because it kind of feels, to me at least, like a reset, like a sliding doors kind of thing. It's like when the referee, a play stops and the referee pops up and says, add 3 seconds to the clock, repeat down, or whatever. It's as though the universe is adding 4 years to the clock and we're going back in time. It's like, let's reset the clock here. Let's do this over again the way it was supposed to be. Okay, so we got the Chiefs and the 49ers positioned in the Super Bowl. It's going to be February. We're going to play that game, and then we're going to carry on as it was supposed to be without this pandemic, because as you know, just a couple weeks after that game was played, we were just screaming our way back to get underneath the border before it closed, and then the pandemic changed the world forever. And that was the last Super Bowl BC. And to be perfectly honest, I don't remember a whole lot about playing that. It was a weird event. It was a weird event. You think to yourself, well, I'm playing a Super Bowl party in America. This is going to be pretty wild. But then again, it's an RV resort. It's full of mostly seniors, a lot of them Canadian. And so it was an event, and they set out chairs and whatever. And we got up and we did our dog and pony show before the game, and people liked that. And then there was chili and stuff. Like, they fed us Super Bowl snacks, which was fun. And they had the TV set up. And so we sat in the common room, in the entertainment room on this complex, and we watched the game. Well, we might have played again at halftime. I can't remember. Probably, I can't remember. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. It was not, as gigs go, a super memorable event. But it was, again, the last Super Bowl BC. And I feel as though now we have this opportunity to reset. We have this opportunity now to start over as it might have been. And I am not, as I said, a big NFL guy. And the reason for that is that I just don't have a team. I just don't have a team. And that's why I'm not a big NFL guy. It's really, really difficult to follow a league when you don't have a horse in the race. And when it comes to football, I did not inherit a team like I did with the Montreal Canadiens. And I did not on my own encounter and become enthralled with a team like I did with Arsenal. For whatever reason, in football, it never happened. It came close. I will say that it came close. And initially it came close with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I can remember watching I'm pretty sure it was the 1982 Super Bowl. And that was Bengals against 49ers, the good old 49ers. And I was 9 years old, I guess. Maybe I was 8, turning 9. And the 49ers won that game, but I was interested in the Bengals. And then that popped up again in 1989. Again, the Super Bowl was 49ers against Bengals, and I was more aware at that point in time. And the 49ers, by then, late 80s, were this dynasty, right? They were the San Francisco 49ers that you think of. Joe Montana, Roger Craig, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, just stuffing people on defense. They were the team of the 80s, really. In the mid-80s, it was the Chicago Bears, Refrigerator Perry, all that stuff. And San Francisco had taken over and become the dominant team. And so I remember watching this game. Again, not being a big football fan at that point in time, watching this game and liking the Bengals. All right, I liked Boomer Esiason. I liked Ickey Woods, the Ickey Shuffle. In fact, in my fantasy football league, which I do play, in my fantasy football league, there is a tradition whereby, or at least there was a tradition, whereby whoever wins the championship the next year gets to pick the names of the two divisions in the league, right? And for whatever reason, when my team won the championship in 2019, oh, glorious day, for whatever reason, I didn't get to pick the divisions the next year. I have a feeling like maybe they ended the divisions and just made one. I can't remember. But my intention was, my plan would have been to name the divisions the Icky Woods Division and the Ironhead Hayward Division. Good old Ironhead Hayward. I was going to call the divisions that. I never got the opportunity, but I liked the Bengals, okay? But mostly, despite Icky, despite Boomer, mostly I liked the uniforms. I liked the orange and black and white. I liked the color scheme. And I liked the tiger stripes on the helmet. Very distinct, very unusual, the Cincinnati Bengals uniforms. And so as a 15, 16-year-old, I was kind of drawn to the Bengals. They lost again in the Super Bowl. And I still kind of like the Bengals. As far as I like anybody, I just don't have a team. I have not been able to make that emotional connection to a football team. And so I tried with the Bengals, and I still like them, and I still cheer for them. I feel as though the Bengals still have this kind of underdog status. I feel as though the city of Cincinnati still has this kind of underdog status. And as geography goes, not that far away from me, so you could almost make a geographical claim. I tried for a minute to be a Bills fan, and teenage me would be stunned and horrified by that. When I was a teenager, I hated the Bills, okay? Where I grew up, we got Buffalo affiliates on TV, okay? So if you're watching NBC, you were watching CBS, whatever, what you were getting, where we were located geographically, was the Buffalo feed. And so that was all Bills all the freaking time. And that was Ed Kilgore. Anybody remember Ed Kilgore? Just the biggest Bills homer on planet Earth, which, if you're doing sports coverage in Buffalo, your job is to be the biggest Bills homer on planet Earth. But it just seemed like when I was a kid, this relentless barrage of Ed Kilgore and the freaking Bills. And this was during the 4 Super Bowl losses in a row period. Bruce Smith, Jim Kelly. Fabulous teams. I mean, the Bills were dynamite, just couldn't close it. And I'll say to you now, it is not the greatest element of my character as a kid, but it's all an evolution. I delighted in the Bills losing those Super Bowls because I hated the freaking Bills, because I was clobbered over the head day after day after day after day with the freaking Bills. And back in those days, the first couple rounds of the hockey playoffs were divisional, and the Canadiens, Montreal, played in the same division as the Buffalo Sabres. So there was a lot of rivalry with Buffalo. And so you combine those factors and you make me, a 16-year-old kid, an idiot. I hated the freaking Bills. But then, I moved to L-Town, where if you catch the weather just right on a weekday afternoon, you can tune in WGR 550, and that is Buffalo Sports Radio. And I'm a talk radio guy, okay? If I'm listening to the radio, I'm usually listening to talk. But you swing around the channels, there's not a lot to hear. And then you land on this scratchy remote broadcast from Buffalo. And it's Mike Shope and the Bulldog doing their afternoon show. And I like Mike Shope and the Bulldog. And they do a funny show. They're good guys, good broadcasters. And they just do an interesting show. And so I'm tuning in. And more, I'm hearing about the Bills from the perspective of these guys who I like. And so I begin to soften towards the Buffalo Bills, okay? And I can remember, in particular, all of the hysteria around the 2018 draft, okay? Now, at that point in time, the Bills have been lousy since those Super Bowl teams, and they have struggled year upon year upon year to find a franchise quarterback. And we all know how important your quarterback is to your franchise winning things or even making the playoffs. And the Bills had been taking punts on guys, drafting guys, going off the board. E.J. Manuel, does that sound right? Just not finding their guy. But the draft class of 2018 was stacked with potential franchise quarterbacks, okay? And the game was, the Bills have to get one of these guys. And they are picking in a spot whereby it seemed feasible and reasonable to get one of them. And the names in that draft are heavy, man. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson. And this was the deepest quarterback class in years and years and years and years and years. And the Bills needed one. And so for months preceding this draft, months and months and months, it was all just coverage and talking about which quarterback the Bills should go for. Should they trade up to get a particular guy? Is there a guy who's the right fit? Who amongst these potential franchise changers is legit and is going to be the guy that Buffalo should try to go and get? And I kid you not, this went on for months. And so every day they've got a different guy coming on the show who covers college sports and is talking about these guys coming out of college programs to be drafted. You get guys who specifically cover the schools that these players are coming from. They had experts in, they had sportscasters in from other NFL markets that were also in the quarterback chase. And they're going back and forth on what each franchise needs and what makes the most. And they just milked this literally for months and months and months. And I was listening along, and you get caught up in this because I do love building a team. I do love building a franchise. It's, again, what I do on Football Manager Mobile. Love taking a team that's in the dumps and renewing it. And this is happening in real time, in real life. And so I got caught up in this conversation about who the Bills should draft as well. And I kid you not, this just went on forever. And then eventually, finally, draft day comes. And the Bills, with their pick, I think they were picking 7. By the time they got to the board, Baker Mayfield was off. All right, he went number 1 to Cleveland. Sam Darnold was off, number 3 to the Jets. And the Bills at 7 picked Josh Allen, of course, right? And we know now that Josh Allen turned out to be the franchise quarterback they were looking for, but it was not a universally applauded pick at the time because they passed on Rosen. They passed on Lamar Jackson, who we also know turned out to be the superstar that he was projected to. Jackson fell to the mid-first round. Like, a lot of teams passed on him, and I bet they're kicking themselves now. But the Bills got Josh Allen, and that was the culmination of this months of coverage where I got caught up just a little bit in the whole Bills thing. And I thought, well, maybe I can be a Bills fan. And so when the season started, I started trying to watch the Bills games and trying to be interested. And the emotional connection just did not come. The emotional connection just did not come. I no longer dislike the Bills. I hope they do well. There was a nice Cinderella story, that not even a Cinderella story, but finally the Detroit Lions were good. Another relatively local team. A lot of Lions fans around here, a lot of Bills fans around here. And good for the Lions. I was disappointed that they did not win against San Francisco, but good game. And it looks like things are on the up for Detroit, so that's good. And so you can reasonably imagine in the future a Super Bowl with Detroit against Buffalo. And I don't know what that does around here, but that would be compelling to watch. The sad bit is that one of those teams would lose. Okay, again, I don't have a horse in the race, and I'm digressing up to a point. The point is, I watch the NFL playoffs, okay? This is my favorite time of year in football. And it's not for the reason that you might think, okay? Now, yeah, the playoffs are on, and this has become my early winter ritual, I guess, that I watch the NFL playoffs, and it's easy to get swept up in it, right? It's one and done. It's lose or go home. It's winner take all, and everybody around you's caught up in it, and it's a fascinating tournament, and it's compelling drama. Right, the game between the Bills and Chiefs a couple years ago was the best football game I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the NFL can really serve up some exciting stuff. And the rules of the game and the nature of the game now are such that you can reasonably expect a competitive fixture, as we say in the soccer world, right? And so this has become my thing over the past few years. I don't watch the regular season. I don't care. I don't have a horse in the race. But I sit down and I watch the playoffs. If they're close, if the games are close, I watch them beginning to end. And that's my connection. That is my contribution to the world of NFL football. And you think, okay, well, it makes sense that that's why this is your favorite time of year in terms of football, but that's not actually why, okay? And the reason may surprise you. The reason I like this time of year in football so much is head coaching changes. This is the time of year when there are head coaching changes, all right? Now, for the teams that make the playoffs, they are caught up in trying to win, trying to move forward, trying to advance, fine. But the rest of the teams, and even some of the teams that go out early in the playoffs that we're not expecting to, these are the teams that are trying to rebuild their franchises, and a lot of them have let coaches go, and it's time to hire a new head coach. And I love that. I love that because it's opportunity knocking, okay? And that's really what this episode is about. It's about opportunity knocking. And you see that this time of year, over the next few weeks, over the next couple of months, teams are going to be hiring new head coaches. And that is going to be a dream absolutely come true for somebody out there. Somebody who has spent 10 years maybe coming out of being a player perhaps, and then becoming a coach and learning and putting in the work and being a quarterback's coach somewhere, getting promoted to maybe offensive coordinator, just working, trying to establish the resume and the reputation and the skill set to be a head coach. And it is a long and grueling process of learning and developing and being in the game. And then finally, that opportunity is going to come. The culmination of all of this work is going to result in finally realizing the dream of getting an NFL head coaching job. And I understand. I recognize that in order for somebody to get an NFL head coaching job, somebody else has to have lost that job. I understand how this works, and that is sad for those people, and it sucks. And it's the topic, perhaps, for a different podcast episode. But I'm looking at opportunity knocking. I love stories of opportunity knocking, and I think about this cat who's going to get that head coaching job finally after all of the years of work and trying and developing and learning. Being in the game, finally getting this opportunity that he or she, most likely he at this point, but not forever, we'll say he is going to get with whoever it is right now, right? And I just think about what it's like at the dinner table that night. After the contract has been signed, the announcement has been made, and you're just sitting around the dinner table celebrating. That opportunity has finally knocked. It has finally come. And I'm just imagining the joy and excitement around the table. And I'm imagining that guy in bed that night, lights out, closes his eyes, whatever. He puts his head on the pillow. And then it just kind of hits him. The opportunity has finally come that we've been dreaming of for years and years and years and preparing for years and years and years. And then just the excitement, the fulfillment, the satisfaction, the ideas running through his head about what he's going to do, how he's going to do it, who he's going to work with, what the team needs, how the offense is going to run, who he's going to hire to help him. Just the endless, limitless possibility of it all. And probably the fear kicking in if it's your first gig, if it's your first head coaching job. Probably some self-doubt flashes through you, some worry about it, and there's just this night of dealing with the ramifications, dealing with the implications, dealing with the potential of this opportunity that has finally knocked. And as a person who's kind of still out there in the world looking for opportunity to knock, it has knocked for me in the past. Now, I was in Texas with Sarah. I have toured in Europe 4 times with Sarah. I had time to bide there too, playing, learning, getting better at my instrument, waiting for opportunity to come. And I know they say make your own opportunities, and that's true as well. But some of us, depending on our circumstances, depending on what we're doing, we are looking for opportunity to knock. And it's exciting for me. It's really exciting and affirming for me when I take a look around and I see opportunity knock for people. And we will see that with head coaching jobs in the NFL over the next little while. And it's not just American football. There's a huge story breaking in the English Premier League right now, where Jurgen Klopp, celebrated, successful, longtime manager of Liverpool Football Club, one of the biggest clubs in the world, has announced that he's going to leave the team at the end of the season. It's time for him to move on. And bam, opportunity knocks for somebody to get an incredible managerial appointment running Liverpool. I mean, that's going to be huge for somebody. And if it's a manager taking on a job at that level for the first time, how exciting and how intimidating. And I just love it because I find myself, I don't know what it's like for you, but for me, I find myself looking all the time just for evidence, just for affirmation that opportunity still knocks, that opportunities still come. And then if you're kind of out there in the wasteland, working away at it, hoping for your chance, hoping for your break, you take a look around and you say, well, it happens. It happened for Mikel Arteta at Arsenal. It's going to happen for a bunch of people who are going to get new jobs coaching in the NFL. And it's just a good reminder that opportunity can still knock, no matter how dire the circumstances may be. And if you want evidence of that, look no further than San Francisco 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy, okay? Brock Purdy, who won yesterday and is about to go to the Super Bowl with his team. And you say, well, okay, he's a professional athlete. What do you expect? Well, to tell you the truth, not much was expected of Brock Purdy, okay? In fact, Brock Purdy has the ignominious label, hope I said that right. He has the title, such as it is, of Mr. Irrelevant. Now, what does Mr. Irrelevant mean? Well, there is a tradition in the NFL, kind of a nasty one, really, where the last person, the last player selected in the draft earns the nickname Mr. Irrelevant. And that tells you what's expected of that player. And it's amazing to me that you can crap on a guy who gets drafted to the NFL. Even if he does get drafted last in a long line of players, he's still on the freaking list, man. You're not. Anyways, the last person drafted is traditionally known as Mr. Irrelevant. And this started back in the 70s, and they started making a thing out of it. Like Mr. Irrelevant gets invited with his family to Newport Beach, California, and they go to Disneyland, and they take part in some sort of a golf thing, and there's a dinner and a roast. Like, they make a thing out of Mr. Irrelevant. And that seems cruel to me. I don't know if I'm missing the point somewhere along the way. And I don't know if they still do all of the hoopla. But a cat who gets drafted last is still called Mr. Irrelevant. And the idea is that's what we expect you to be as a professional football player. In a lot of cases, Mr. Irrelevant doesn't even break training camp with the team that drafted him. He's released before the team even gets together again. You know, Mr. Irrelevant is expected to be absolutely nobody, not have a career in football, not even probably put on a jersey or lace up the cleats for a practice session in the NFL. Well, in 2022, kids, Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant, the last player drafted that year. And wears the goat horns as being Mr. Irrelevant. But he shows up. He was drafted by the 49ers, and he shows up to training camp in San Francisco and made it that far. And breaks camp with the team, makes the team, and sits on the sidelines throughout the start of the season as the number 3 quarterback, okay? He's playing behind Jimmy Garoppolo. He's playing behind Trey Lance. He's the 3rd string guy. He is the guy who gets called upon only in the most extreme of emergencies in a desperation play to have somebody on the freaking field. Well, guess what? The dire emergency happens. Garofalo gets injured, Trey Lance gets injured, and all of a sudden, the San Francisco freaking 49ers, Joe Montana, Roger Craig, the San Francisco 49ers, Steve Young, all of a sudden the ball is handed to Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, and all Brock Purdy does is win the next 5 games, lead San Francisco to the playoffs, lead them to the semi-freaking finals. They lost, but all this cat did was win. And then when they break camp next year, all of a sudden Mr. Irrelevant is the starter for the San Francisco 49ers. Garoppolo is gone. Trey Lance, I don't even know where he went, somewhere. The team belongs to Mr. Irrelevant himself, Brock Purdy. And all the freaking guy does is win. All right, the 49ers cruise through the league this year. He's breaking records for passing. Brock Purdy emerges as not just a legit starter, but a freaking star. He's a Pro Bowl selection. That makes him an all-star for those of you who are not NFL people. This dude, Mr. Irrelevant, takes the freaking league by storm, and they begin to change his nickname to Mr. Relevant. Take that! And what an inspiring story. And now Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft in 2022, the desperation emergency play, is going to be in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks' time and might just freaking win the Super Bowl as a starting quarterback. Huh. How inspiring, how exciting is that? And what's the freaking lesson? What are the freaking lessons? What did Brock Purdy do? Didn't complain about being drafted last. He said, okay, I'm in the show. What I needed was to be drafted, and I was. And they can call me Mr. Irrelevant all they want, but I know I got game. I know I got skills. No matter what anybody thinks of me or that list, I was on it, as Judge Harry Stone said. That's a Night Court reference, kids. Purdy shows up to camp. He's going to earn his spot on the team. He does. He's going to work. He's going to learn the playbook. He's going to be a good team guy. He's going to do the best he can as a third string quarterback, which is just being on the practice field, working on stuff, learning, getting better, practicing, waiting, believing. Don't stop believing. And play that drum part right when you get the chance. Purdy hangs in, and he's a good team player, and he learns his role, and he does it. And when opportunity knocks, he freaking crushes it, man. And that is so inspiring. And the message is, if opportunity has not yet knocked for you, as Kay Howell said, don't quit before the miracle can happen, but be freaking ready when the opportunity comes. If you are a musician and you're still waiting for that really plum gig to come along, be ready. All right. Do not cop a disgruntled Mr. Irrelevant attitude about your situation. Say, okay, I'm here. I'm in the game. My job is to be as ready as I can when opportunity does knock. Work on your instrument. Work on your playing. Get your networking together. Get your professionalism together. All right. Prepare for the stages you want to play. Same deal for a band. Don't sit there whining because you haven't had a break yet or you haven't had a look in yet. Get your show ready for the stage you want to play. Work on it. Work on it. Work on it. Work on it. Do the work. Do the work. Do the work. Get yourself ready. And then when opportunity does knock, the band that was supposed to open for this big touring band has COVID and can't, and they need somebody desperately like Brock Purdy just to be on the field. They call you guys, and you go in and you're a well-oiled freaking machine and you crush that. Ditto, you're a guitar player looking for an audition or an actor looking for work on your freaking chops. Get that together. Get your professionalism together and just keep your head down, working on it, working on it, working on it. So instead of complaining about not getting your shot, being ready and having the faith, having the optimism, having the positive frame of mind that says my chance is going to come. And when it does, I am going to destroy. I am going to tear that room up, whatever it is, whether it's a promotion that you've been waiting on at work, getting your stuff ready, getting your ideas in order, taking the management courses that you need, taking the qualifications, working with people, just learning your industry, so that when opportunity finally knocks, like Brock Purdy, you don't come in as a joke. You come in as a Pro Bowler. You come in as a guy about to lead your team to the freaking Super Bowl. I find this so exciting, and it happens in sports all the time, man. All right, once in a while, Connor McDavid gets drafted or Connor Bedard gets drafted, and they slide right in to the top line because they are that exceptional. But the rest of the people on that team probably had to work their way in, probably had to bide their time in the minors. If you're a footballer, you probably had to go on loan to 3 different lower league teams where people are screaming at you and throwing beer, which I suppose happens in the Premier League too. But under much more lucrative and glorious circumstances, you have probably had to pay your dues, man. But the difference is you paid your dues in the right way, and you learned and you developed and you honed and you got the confidence and you got the faith and you got the belief. And then when the first team needed you, you stepped in and you did the freaking job and you earned your place. That is Brock Purdy. That is so many people down the years. And it's interesting, man, because your draft position doesn't tell you anything. All right, who did I say was in that quarterbacks draft 2018? Baker Mayfield went first overall to Cleveland, and he only lasted a couple seasons there. Didn't work out. And then he kicked around to St. Louis, and he kicked around to Carolina, and he finally landed kind of by accident in Tampa Bay this year and finally started to fulfill some of that potential. Was not an easy road, and it looked for a minute like Baker Mayfield was just going to be a first-round bust, a first overall bust. Josh Rosen, he's backing up somebody somewhere. A lot of people thought Rosen was the most ready guy of all of them. He was going to step in and play. Sam Darnold, he's a backup somewhere now, didn't make it or hasn't yet. All right, Lamar Jackson made it. Josh Allen made it. Bills made a good pick. But that's 2 out of the 5 who actually became the superstar franchise guy on the team that drafted them. The others didn't. Here's Brock Purdy. Here's Mr. Irrelevant, just biding his time, doing the reps, doing the work, keeping the positive attitude. Then opportunity freaking knocks. He is ready. And he crushes it. And you can too, my friends, and so can I. In whatever field you're working at, if you are ambitious, if you are aspirational, and you are waiting for your chance, the game is to just keep getting ready, man. Keep getting ready quietly. Keep getting ready off the big stage. And then when the light shines upon you, bam, you are ready to go. That is my encouragement to you. That is my encouragement to me. And that is me talking about football, man. The stories of encouragement, the stories of inspiration are everywhere. And I got to tell you, part of the beautiful symmetry of this episode is that it shows up again in this week's musical recommendation, which I will get to after the Patreon plug very quickly, children. Friends of mine, there is a Patreon page for this podcast. It is patreon.com/JohnHuffPodcast, where for the very, very low monthly commitment of $5 a month, 1 tier of membership, you can support the program. Think of it, as I always say, of tipping me $1.25 for every episode that I do. If you are enjoying this podcast, if you are inspired, educated, motivated, if you learn about new music, if you just enjoy having a positive voice in your ear holes once a week, you say to yourself, that's worth $1.25 to me for the work that I'm doing here, because it does take quite a lot of work. And it takes no little expense, actually, for me to make this happen. And I don't want to do ads on the show. I've talked in every Patreon plug about the fact that ads drive me crazy. And some of the ads on the football broadcasts, that Pepsi ad, boom, boom, boom with the bass line, drives me nuts. I got to change the freaking channel every time that comes on. don't want to do that to you. I do not want to fill this space with freaking advertisements because I listen to podcasts that do that and it drives me nuts. I don't want to do that. And so I have opted to go Patreon as a way of monetizing the show. All right. And if you're into it, if you're getting something from this, please consider supporting the work on Patreon. Patreon.com/John Huff Podcast. If you don't want to do that, if you can't do that, that's fine. That's okay. Tell your friends. More and more and more, word of mouth is the key. For somebody like me who's an indie, I do not have a $500,000 marketing budget to promote this show out there. What I have is faithful listeners like you who just tell their friends, who just share the content I put out that promotes the show. I do 2 or 3 teasers every week. And if you can just share those, if you can just like them, comment on them, all of that does something with however the algorithm works that just helps the show reach more people. You know, if there are people out there who would like to be inspired by the story of Brock Purdy or head coaching changes, if you think there's people out there who could just use a boost, what I'm trying to do here, more and more I realize it, is just provide a boost. Just provide an encouragement, because I know it's so negative out there. And I know because I've encountered it myself. And I've said it in my own head, where it seems like every dream is impossible. You know, all they ever hear is make it a side hustle, make it a hobby, whatever the dream is for you. I get frustrated by the language around it. I get frustrated by the attitude around it that says it's impossible. And so the mission on this show from day one, I've taken different routes and different angles at it. From day one, the mission here has just been to show people that things are possible. I've needed in my own life. One of the reasons I started it was so I could talk to people who could prove to me that things were possible, you know? The format of the show has changed over time, but the message remains the same. It's possible. We're here to encourage each other. We're here to believe in possibility. And if that's doing it for you, please share it with people who could use it too. Ratings and reviews help. Ratings and reviews on your preferred podcast platform, preferably, too many P's, preferably positive ones. They just help, right? If you want to boost the show, you want to throw me a bone, you want to warm my cockles, share the episodes, ratings and reviews, merch, john-huff.com/shop for your t-shirts and your mugs, etc. It all just helps. And it says to me that you're enjoying the program, you're getting something from it, and that warms my cockles too, kids. All right, patreon.com/John Huff Podcast, john-huff.com/shop, and on your Facebook and on your Instagram, the John Huff Podcast. Follow along, share the episodes, and I certainly do appreciate it. Before we go, the symmetry continues. I heard something this week that I really, really love. And I dig when that happens, okay? The band is called Still Corners. They are a combined Anglo-UK act, and they've been around forever. It's another one of these things that I've encountered that's been out there living this gloriously successful and popular life, and I've missed it entirely. Same thing as Slow Dive. It's like, oh, I love this song. Who is this band? They've been around for 30 years. Oh, who knew? I guess I've been somewhat isolated in certain ways, or been focused perhaps too rigidly in some directions. So there's this band called Still Corners. How do they fit into the narrative of opportunity knocking? Well, the way in which this band got together, the principals are Greg Hughes and Tessa Murray, and they met by complete accident. They met in a sliding doors moment for the ages, okay? This goes back to like 2007. And they are in the UK, I think probably in London. They're on a train and they're headed somewhere. Both of them independently are on this train. And something goes wrong whereby, I don't know if a stop was mislabeled or something was mislabeled somewhere. The details are a little fuzzy on this, and I've done the research and I can't seem to get a straight answer. So the train stops at wherever they think they're supposed to be, and they both get off the train, right? And everybody gets off the train because that was their stop. And everybody filters away. And then independently, Greg and Tessa, Greg the songwriter, Tessa the singer, they both realize they're in the wrong spot. And I think the train disappears, whatever. And there's suddenly just two of them basically standing on the platform in the wrong spot. And one looks at the other and says, "Did you get off at the wrong place too?" "Yeah, I did." And they strike up this conversation. And Greg says to Tessa, "Where are you off to anyway?" And Tessa says, "I'm heading to choir practice." Now, at this point in time, Greg is writing songs, and he's desperate to find a vocalist to sing them and bring them to life. And he's like, "Oh, wow, you're a singer. I got this music. You should check it out. Maybe come and sing on it or something like that." And Tessa's like, "I don't know, maybe. Sounds cool to me." Long story short, from there begins this musical relationship that turns into this band, Still Corners. And they've released several records. They are described as a dream pop band. And what does that mean? When I heard this particular song, which is called The Dream, it's a brand new single from their forthcoming album, Dream Talk. It's called The Dream. And when I listened to it, it's really, really chill. It's weird though, all right? It's chill, but still very driving, okay? And it's great driving music, by the way. Going back to what we used to talk about, which is context for music. Where is this going to fit? And it made me think of, initially I thought, is this shoegaze? Like, it made me think of things like Slow Dive. So this bass line and this shimmery, effectsy, kind of chorusy guitar over top. But it's super chill. And I think one of the things about dream pop is it's very closely related with shoegaze. And dream pop, there tends to be these very ethereal kind of vocals. It's very chill. The whole vibe of it is chill. And yet, as I said, it drives. And so I heard this for the first time, this song, The Dream, and I'm like, oh man, I love this. And I haven't had that reaction for a while. I have it every now and again. And I listen to this and I'm like, I love this already. I love this song, The Dream by Still Corners. And I thought, brand new brand, brand new song. It's like, no, they've been around for, 15, 16 years. They've got like 6 records out. I just missed it all. And so I've begun to listen to some of their other stuff. And it's really interesting to me. Now, if you are a follower of this show for any length of time, and you liked Liz Stringer, and you liked Slow Dive, and you liked maybe Jenny Lewis, some of that stuff that I've talked about before, I just really love all of that stuff. It's got that kind of vibe to me. But then I'm listening to it and I'm like, it sounds a little bit like Dire Straits. And it sounds a little bit like Chris Isaak. Just different songs remind me of those things. And so it's this, a lot of it's very upbeat, but it's still really chill at the same time. These understated vocals. Tessa has a really cool voice, and the two of them are the band. When they play live, they've got other players with them. And it's just really, really good kind of indie pop, kind of alt rock, shoegaze, dream pop, and a lot of minor chords. Thing about this stuff is that the emotion is produced partly with the effects, partly with the understated vocals, a lot of minor chords, and so if you dig that, I think you're going to dig the song The Dream by Still Corners. And I love the origin story because what is it? It's opportunity knocking. And that's how it can happen sometimes. Right out of the freaking blue, right out of nowhere, you're bumbling along looking for a singer to begin to elevate and put together this project that you're working on. And both of you screw up at a train and you're left standing on a platform together. That is a movie. That's a movie, and you see it in the movie and you go, oh, that could never happen. It happened, and I love it because you just don't know, man. You just don't know when you walk at your front door if opportunity is going to knock today, if you are going to get a message today from some band that you weren't even really thinking of saying, hey, we're going on the road in 2 weeks, and our guitar player just pooped out on us and somebody mentioned you. Are you interested and available? You don't know if that message is coming today or not. You really don't. Or a job offer or whatever. It can happen today. And you say, no, it can't. Yeah, it can. Look at the story of Still Corners. 10 years ago, longer than that maybe now, 10 years ago, I'm running a little music blog. And somebody says, hey, you should interview my friend Carly Thomas. I say, okay. I interview Carly Thomas. We get to talking. I listen to her music. I really like it. It's my alley. It's right up my alley as a drummer. I say to her casually, if you ever need somebody, I'm a drummer. And fast forward to so much. I played with Carly for a long, long time. From that, I branched off into Sarah and all the touring. And now I play with Carly again off. It's like my whole musical trajectory changes in that instant. Opportunity knocks. And it can for you, and it did for Still Corners. And I love that. And I love this song, The Dream. I'm starting to lose my voice. This has gone farther than I intended. I'm going to go. Brock Purdy, 49ers, head coaches, football, Still Corners, opportunity knocks, kids. And I would call this episode that, but I've already called an episode that, so I got to think of something else. I hope you are inspired. I hope you are, if the opportunity has not come yet, if the miracle has not arrived yet, I hope you are keeping a good attitude about it, keeping optimistic about it, holding on to the faith, and just preparing for the moment. And then when the moment comes, you freaking crush it, man. Good things happen when you put yourself out there. I remain the living proof of that. Other people are just showing us all the way. So hold tight to that, my friends. Keep the faith and be ready when the opportunity comes. I will be back next week with something. I want to thank you for listening this far. And hey, kids, I'll check you later. Yeah. We're in a dream. We're in a dream. Maybe it's a dream within a dream.